Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started now. The topic for the webinar today is Huawei is Innovation, and we're going to give you a quick run-through on a variety of different areas of technology where Huawei is investing and some great innovations that are coming out of the company. We have three excellent presenters for you today. The first is going to be Thomas Keenan, who's a Director of Product Marketing in the Huawei Cupertino office. We're also going to have Ajay Gupta, who's also a Director of Marketing in the Santa Clara office. And we're going to have one of the engineering guys, Bo Bigol, who's a VP of Engineering, also coming in to share some with us. Before we get started, first of all, just want to thank everyone for taking some time out of their day. We know everyone's busy, and we think you're going to find this to be a great session. We will have some polling questions interspersed throughout the presentation. So when we do that, we strongly encourage you to participate and vote, and we'll show you the results of what everybody else thinks about some of the questions that we ask. And speaking of questions, we would really appreciate if you'd submit any questions that you have in the chat window in your panel that you're using to view the webinar. These are three really great experts in terms of innovation, so if you have any questions, please send those and we'll deal with those all at the end. Finally, the webinar is being recorded, and so you'll be able to hear a recorded version or share this with other friends and colleagues after the presentation is over. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our first speaker, who is Thomas Keenan, Director of Product Marketing at Huawei. Thomas, take it away.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate your kind intro there. And to start us off and to frame us here, let me first go over our agenda for this morning's webinar. We'll try to keep it, again, as Nick mentioned, to about 45 minutes with plenty of time for a Q&A at the back. But without further ado, let me talk a little bit about who is Huawei. So a lot of you have been in our webinar series before, and some of you have probably been coming for a few years, but there's always new folks who haven't, so we'll go a little bit about the company in background first. Secondly, we'll talk about innovation, and Huawei is certainly no stranger to the area. Let's talk a little bit about what various accolades we have won in this space over time. We'd also like to take a quick footnote here and take a look at the MirrorSys project, which is a highly innovative project that we have Bo, who Nick mentioned, working on assiduously, and really shows the forefront of video conferencing and telepresence technology at its best. We'll also talk about specifically, Ajay will cover this, some product innovations that we have in switching and routing and storage and across the broad portfolio that we serve. And then finally, it's always good to wrap it up with some customer references and people who have actually taken our solutions out and test-driven them, and what they think of them and what their plans are future down the road. So that sounds like an interesting agenda. Let's get to it. My first slide is specifically who is Huawei. So to net it out, we're a leading global ICT solution provider, and that's information and communications technology. We currently rank about 285th in the most recent global Fortune 500 with a highly customer-centric culture. That's what we wake up every morning and do. It's why the reason that we breathe is to serve the customer in over 125 countries. If you look at my revenue and sustainable growth slide, what's interesting is that we have topped out the most recent actual results, which was 2014, at about $46.5 billion. And what's notable about that is that growth was achieved during a time of huge industry downturn. If you've been paying attention to what's gone on with a lot of the legacy vendors, this has not been a period of sustained growth for them. Yet Huawei has soldiered on and managed these results. We do serve 45 of the top 50 telecom providers in the world. We are also the #3 smartphone maker. We actually have three divisions: enterprise, service provider, and consumer. And so a lot of you folks may know us from the smartphone world. We've certainly got a lot of great recent announcements in the Consumer Electronics Show that was held in Vegas in January. Also, interestingly, on our revenue split, some folks think of us as a Chinese company. As a matter of fact, less than half our business comes in China. We're extremely well known in Europe, in Africa, and Asia, and we intend to continue doing the same thing in the U.S. In that specific market in the U.S., we've been here since 2001, down in Plano with our carrier group, and most recently in the enterprise since 2011 when we launched the enterprise effort in Interop fall of that year. So I think, as a quick way of background then, as I mentioned, consumer, service provider, and enterprise are the three main markets we serve. That gives us a huge reach into over 3.5 billion end users. And so I think it gives us a unique perspective in which we understand the consumer, we understand the needs of the telcos, and also we understand the enterprises and serve them all equally. And so I hope that provides a very quick snapshot of who we are and what we do for a living. And with that, Nick, I believe it's time for our polling question number 1.
You are correct, Thomas. And the first thing we want to find out is what technology area do you think in the audience is showing or driving the most innovation currently? So go ahead and vote, and we'll go ahead and show you guys all the results. So go ahead and place a vote, and we'll let you go. While you're placing that vote, I do want to remind you one more time, if you have questions for these great presenters, please do provide those via the Q&A panel, and we'll go ahead and handle those all at the end. We're already getting a couple of questions, which is great. It sounds like maybe one or two of you is having some challenges with the audio. If you are, sometimes with the headset, we've had people who've had a challenge. So if you do find that your headset isn't working for whatever reason, go ahead and use the dial-up number, and you should be able to call in with no problem. So that's just a piece of advice. So as we're looking at the results, it looks like it's a fairly even battle. It looks like mobile broadband ELTE is leading with close to 30%. And then there's a couple other ones that are in the 25% area, and storage a little bit behind. But I think that's great news, Thomas, for you and all the speakers. It seems like there's a lot of things driving innovation, and there's quite an even spread. So go ahead and continue on.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate the update. I appreciate everyone voting there. And yeah, we've kind of got the same results. As a matter of fact, we have got some interesting data from all those four quadrants, whether it be mobile broadband, the huge amount of data that's being produced, over 176 zettabytes, and I'll talk about that in a second, by 2025 worldwide, and then 100 billion connections for the Internet of Things, and finally, the fact that a lot of CIOs are embracing what they're calling a cloud strategy. But let's begin at the bottom left corner. 176 zettabytes of data will be produced worldwide by 2025. And to give you an idea of exactly what a zettabyte is, it is 10 to the 21st bytes, which again doesn't by itself define much other than to think that all human speech, if it were compressed onto a data storage format, would only take 42 zettabytes. So you can imagine in 1 year, by 2025, the amount of data we're producing worldwide is going to take a huge amount of storage and processing power. And I'm happy to report in our product section for the webinar today, we will be covering the Huawei storage and the switching solutions and our data center solutions, so we'll have a great answer for that space. Number two, 8.5 billion mobile broadband connections are expected worldwide by 2025 as well, keeping the time frame the same. And that poses huge challenges to any company that has a more and more mobile workforce, whether it's a carrier delivery service, whatever have you. How exactly do they prepare for that future? On the Internet of Things, there isn't much these days that people aren't thinking of attaching a sensor to, whether that be in the field of oil and gas, service delivery, electricity, retail, you name it, we're attaching that kind of connection to the Internet. And so that'll pose huge challenges to the growth of the Internet over time as these devices and sensors report in more and more information that we can then take and use big data analytics to process. And then finally, in the bottom right-hand corner, I'm showing that 70% of all CIOs, as a matter of fact, I'm not surprised the number doesn't go higher from here, are considering a cloud-first strategy where they'll take their critical assets and decide which of those can I disperse to the cloud and which are truly core in context and which ones should I keep within the walls of my data center. And so that's a conversation that's occurring in a lot of enterprises worldwide. Okay, so let's take a quick stop back then. We talked about innovation, and let's clear the air first. Let's define innovation so that we're all on the same page as we go through the rest of the presentation. I'll define it differently than creativity. Creativity I will call thinking up new things. Innovation is actually doing those new things. So there's a fundamental difference between inspiration and then perspiration, as Thomas Watson once said, or it was actually Thomas Edison, excuse me. And so a couple gentlemen who knew that answer extremely well was Steve Jobs and Peter Drucker. One from a company perspective, where we realized that innovation was the lifeblood that kept his company moving forward. And so to this day, just one small result of that lifeblood, of that innovation, is the fact that Apple has such a huge piece of the smartphone market and the device market and a big chunk of the profits, obviously along with Huawei ourselves. Peter Drucker fundamentally also understood, a maven of marketing if anyone was, that you have to have three horizons in innovation. You have to have a 0 to 12-month innovation horizon where, in essence, you're paying your bills. You're making the money that's going to keep your revenues flowing. But if it stops there, if you're just 1 year out, in essence, over time, you'll eat your seed corn and not be able to plan for the future. So you also want that 2 to 3 year horizon and even beyond, where you have folks dedicated to the next series of things that are going to make your company great without necessarily looking to the immediate cash results of what they're working on. And so that's a very different thought process than depending everything upon your quarterly or your yearly results. I think another company that does a great job of this and makes it part of life, it's not an isolated incident, is Google. And there's a great quote there from Jeff Huber, who's a senior VP over there at Google X. And he says there are a set of things reinforced by the culture of the company that enable and empower innovation. In essence, if he's having a conversation with someone who says, I'm going to appoint a chief information or chief innovation officer, or I'm going to have just one small team work on it in the company, he knows he's having the wrong conversation. What you want to do is make it a mission across the company, start with the user and build back from there, and be transparent and data-based on how you're going to get to the innovation that you're seeking. Take 20% of everyone's time and employ it to that forward-looking innovation conversation. And at the end of the day, set the expectation company-wide and not just to a small team of players that innovation is the rule, not the exception. Okay, and Nick, with that, let's turn to polling question number 2.
Thomas, thank you so much. That's really interesting to look at how some of those classic companies that are viewed as great innovators, what some of their philosophies are. So that's helpful. Next question we want to ask, and Thomas is going to dive into some of these numbers, but we just want to know what you think or what you estimate in terms of how much money Huawei invests in R&D and innovation annually. So go ahead and vote on that, and Thomas will give you the answer here momentarily. But go ahead and take a vote and see what you think in terms of Huawei's investment in innovation. We are still getting a lot of great questions, so please keep those coming. There's no topic off the table for these guys. They're going to be able to answer any of the various different technology spectrums where Huawei plays, and that's a pretty broad area. So Thomas, interesting, almost half the audience, it's kind of fluctuating, somewhere between half and almost half think Huawei invests more than $7 billion. Wow, these are some major numbers. And then slightly down from there. So we'll go ahead and give you guys about another 5 more seconds to vote, and then Thomas will show you what the results are. So please take a moment, and thank you. All right, Thomas, let's close it out. Half the people in attendance think that Huawei invests more than $7 billion. What's the answer?
Okay, so let's take a quick look at the answers. And yes, as a matter of fact, Huawei does have an extreme innovation leadership angle. We know we need to continue to innovate, and so to do that, how do you do it? You invest in R&D. And so about $6.6 billion in 2014 alone was dedicated to innovation, to investment in R&D. We do have about 70,000 R&D employees. That's about half our total headcount. We do run 23 R&D centers worldwide and 25 joint innovation centers where we ask our partners to come in and help out with innovation and drive solutions for the market. So a lot of great stuff going on. We are a board member of numerous IEEE, ETSI, OEM, and WiMAX forum boards. We do have over 50,000 patent applications worldwide at last count, and the total number of applications ranks number 4 in 2014 overall. So again, just to give you some background on how we're doing, again, well over $6 billion invested in R&D worldwide just last year. Let me quickly now, in a second part of our presentation, run through some various accolades the market has definitely noticed, and we're getting awards from different types of organizations, whether that be standards bodies, end user publications. Let me run through a few of these. We were named one of the fastest and most innovative companies by Fast Company. We shot past Alcatel-Lucent and Nokia, most recently Siemens, to become the world's number 2 telecommunications provider. So that's a great notice from the Fast Company organization. At shows, we've had a lot of presence at Tokyo Interop in the last year, and for the 3 years in a row, we've accepted this time awards for our Agile switches, the S12700 that AJ will talk about in the later part of the presentation, as well as our UDS storage solutions for very campus and data-centric awards that we have won very recently. Continuing here on more of an SDN bent, network functions virtualization is a very important new technology that separates key pieces of the network function and actually operates them in software. And because we've at the forefront in SDN, we have been recognized for having the best network functions virtualization innovation of the year in 2015 at the LTE World Summit. Also, more on the service provider side, we were recognized by Total Telecom as an entry compelling enough to impress the ACA judges there, or the Asia Communications Association. With a proven track record and a comprehensive portfolio of products and services, Huawei's dominance as vendor of the year continues as Huawei Technologies wins for the second year running. This angle that I'm showing on the next slide, the Best Foreign Investor Award, really is a nod to the fact that at the end of the day, we really have to serve the countries and the areas that we're in as good corporate citizens and investing in jobs and R&D locally. And so Colombia in February of 2015 in Latin America has delivered the recognition of Best Foreign Investor to Huawei, the Chinese telecom company, for its dedication and commitment to Colombia, the country, by providing high-quality technology at the most competitive prices and obviously providing local employment opportunities. At the end of the day, though, for us here at Huawei, the most important people voting are end-user customers, and so various industry benchmarks, various industry verticals continue to invest solidly in Huawei. Don't need to read all of these to you, but again, in oil and gas, we have a huge footprint. 140 countries, including both government agencies and public sectors, invest in us. 6 of the top worldwide banks. The list goes on and on. Could talk that for a while, but I think you get the idea that Huawei has a huge vertical focus, and the verticals in the markets have noticed. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to you and talk a little bit about our extremely interesting MirrorSys project. Bo, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Thomas.
You bet.
Thank you, Nick. So I'm here to give you an inside peek into how some of the innovation operates by describing just one of the many, many projects in Huawei's Central Research Institute. So I'm the head of the Media Technologies Lab, and we have about 120 researchers in 7 locations. We have 2 sites in the U.S., we have 3 in China, 1 in Europe, and 1 in Russia. And we work on new technologies, new media technologies that will open up new business opportunities for the company in the longer term. One of our visions is to create media technologies that surpass human perception limits so that people will not be capable of perceiving that they're looking at a digital image versus a real-life image. And we believe that this kind of capability will open up new markets in remote reality experiences, new markets such as immersive sports experiences where the players are represented at full life size and the audience members can see the live sports as if they were right there on the sidelines. And things like telemedicine will advance beyond now where they have sort of doctor-patient conferences, which are just sort of conversations, to where the doctors will be able to see all of the visual and audio detail that they need to make actual medical diagnoses and perform surgery from different locations. It'll open up new capabilities for telerepair, where technicians can work on complex machinery by seeing and hearing all of the problems that the machines are having and directing junior technicians on site. It'll open up new education experiences where hard-to-reach locations at the frontiers of science can be seen by students in full visual detail. And it'll also open up some consumer applications like tourism in exotic locations that are hard to reach, shopping in fantastic boutiques around the world. And we see this remote reality as sort of a subset of the current trend in virtual reality. But whereas in virtual reality, the experience is fully computer generated, in remote reality, the data are generated by actual physical realities. This is a continuation, though, of telecommunication technologies. You know, the society's need to communicate has really driven technology through the ages. And it's gone from simple 1-bit signals of beacon fires to, you know, telegraph signals, and now we have voice and video, which is very common. But if you look at that and the new technologies that are coming online, we see that in addition to video signals, we're adding depth information. And in the research labs and universities, there are things such as light field cameras and light field displays which add to the visual detail. They add the angle at which the light is captured. And with this, you can really recreate reality by allowing the audience members to dynamically change the focus of their retinas, of their eyes as they look at the scene. Now for Huawei, we're not inventing these cameras or displays. What we're doing, though, is tracking the trend. As we see ultra high resolution cameras like 4K cameras in the hands of consumers, And we see this year being announced 8K cameras for professionals, and rumors are that it might even be in the hands of consumers this year too. And then the display technologies are getting higher and higher pixel densities and larger screens at lower and lower costs. So our mission is just to make the connection in real time between these cameras and these displays. And so what we're doing in our research lab is we're predicting the future by creating arrays of cameras and combining them in real time so that we can have these ultra high resolution camera capture systems that can capture panoramic views of sports experiences or exotic locations, and stitch those together and transport those over the network in real time. And by real time, our target is to have that full end-to-end transport occur in less than 100 milliseconds, which is the threshold at which people perceive things as less than instantaneous. So we're working toward that, and I'll just show you some images of our current prototype. This is our version 1 prototype of MirrorSys, and this is a full wall display that's driven by 16 HD projectors that project from behind the screen, and our technology stitch those together so that the seams between the projectors are not perceivable. The room also is equipped with a 22.2 full surround audio, which is 24 speakers, and that provides a full 360-degree sound experience so that you can actually hear the directionality of objects that are moving in the scene. Now, if you look at this screen, it's 32 megapixels and it's full wall size. And this is the one that we had in March this year. We showed this at Mobile World Congress and then again at CeBIT. And now today in our lab, we have version 2 of this, which is double width. It's 10 meters wide and 2.6 meters high and 64 megapixels. And the technical challenge here is really in capturing that amount of data and compressing it in real time and transporting it over the network to be rendered at full life size. And the reason life size is important is that when objects appear at life size, they feel more real, as if you could even step through that screen and walk across that bridge. And when you've got people at full real size, then you have a more social connection with those people, and the experience is much richer. And that enhances not just teleconferencing, but all of these other kinds of use cases that I talked about for remote repair, sports experiences, and just a variety of new kinds of interactions that you can have with people that are represented at full life size and not just talking heads in a teleconference. So this slide just sums it up, just to say that our goal with the MirrorSys system and our program is to create experiences that are better than being there, to just break that boundary that distance imposes on the way people communicate. We're creating a digital reflection of a remote reality. And as I mentioned, this is a form of virtual reality, but the form factor that we're providing is in many ways better than the head-mounted goggles that you see in virtual reality. Our form factor allows multiple people to simultaneously see the screen and experience that remote reality, and also doesn't have the discomfort of the head-mounted displays. So that's the MirrorSys program. I'll be happy to answer any questions about it, and let me turn it back over to Thomas and Nick.
Thanks, Bill. So let me kind of walk you through to the next item in the agenda. So I'm going to talk on some of the product innovations that we have brought in our network. As Tom was saying earlier, what Google was saying, that there is not one single thing, but it's a set of things reinforced by the company culture that makes the company and enterprise as innovative. Huawei over the last few years has come up something really unique and differentiated in the market. So I'm going to point to some of those things as we see it from the products and solution perspective. So the very first thing is our Agile network. I think most of you or some of you might be familiar with the Agile network that was announced in, I think, 2 years ago. It's a next-generation enterprise solution that enables the swift and the flexible network for services. It helps you deploy services much quicker and faster. It deploys the standard definition of SDN as you know it, which is pretty much the separation of the control and forwarding plane. But Huawei has taken that SDN definition from an industry point of view and actually added a lot more updates and so-called unique innovation to that SDN. So if you look on the slide on the red and in the red color, there are three unique things that I'm going to talk that our Agile networks brings to the market. The very first one is fully programmable. Huawei Agile Network is fully based on the fully programmable architecture, which allows the networks to quickly introduce and evolve new services much quicker, which used to take 2 years, can be done in 3 to 4 months now. If you look at the other vendors who have deployed the same SDN-enabled APIs, they only support SDN in the control plane, but Huawei is the only one that supports SDN not just in the control plane, but in the forwarding plane. So now you can program both the control side and the data plane, or the so-called forwarding plane. In fact, a typical case was one of our major customer in Asia who wanted to deploy a new routing protocol. And because our forwarding plane was programmable, they were able to do that in less than 3 months, thus endorsing some of this fully programmable architecture. Next thing which I'm going to point to as part of innovation is a real-time quality detection. As you already know, the network faults are difficult to diagnose and detect, and they lay dormant on the network for a long time because the traditional TCP network can be retransmitted. So packet losses, it doesn't interrupt services. And sometimes people and the users and the enterprises tend to overlook the problem unless the problem shows up finally on the network. But what happens when you're deploying the real-time services such as video, voice, clouds are deployed? You really want to know what the problem, where the problem is in real time. And that's where what exactly we have done with the quality awareness using a protocol, what we say IPCA actually. It enables the network to really detect service quality and fault in real time, not just on the link between the two devices, but on the card, even at the chip level in real time. That we think is a pretty unique when it comes to doing the real-time services on your network. The third thing I'm going to point from a unique innovation point of view is what we call smooth evolution. Huawei's Agile network supports so-called dual plane, which means if you're not ready for the SDN, you don't have to deploy SDN. You can actually take the Agile network and implement your traditional architecture the way it is. And then the second plane can be used to deploy in your production network your SDN-based services. As and when you're ready, you can migrate from the SDN network, you can migrate your traditional network to the SDN services. The point here is the same network can be split logically into two divisions, one supporting your existing architecture and the second supporting your SDN-enabled services in sort of a testing environment, so that as and when you're ready, you can migrate the whole thing to the SDN architecture, thus really giving you that flexibility that you need in an Agile network. Let's move on to the next slide here. This is again kind of our Agile network. The heart of Agile network is what we call the S12700 switch, our Agile campus switch, the core switch. The brain of this network is the chips, the so-called ENP, the Ethernet Network Processor. That is completely in-house Huawei developed. That really enables us to deploy these services in a much faster and efficient manner. The chip uses a fully programmable architecture. That's how we get the whole programmability in the different layers from layer 1 to layer 7. You can define your own forwarding models. You can define your own forwarding behaviors. Your lookup algorithms really enables you to customize and provision those customized services in less than 6 months actually. There is something what we call smart memory. Using the smart memory and the Huawei's highly efficient search algorithm, the ENP-based products or the so-called Agile network can provide millions of hardware entries without actually depending on that expensive TCAM if you're kind of familiar with the traditional switch architecture. For example, a 12700 can actually provide 1 million MAC entries, almost 3 million FIB entries, far, far more than on the traditional network. There are a couple of unique advantages here. Another thing I'm going to point to is that ENP is aware of so-called traffic changes. So based on the traffic changes, it can change the power consumption. For example, when the traffic volume is low, actually, some of the ports can be shut down. Some of the fans can be put in the sleep mode. Some of the line cards can be put in a very dormant mode. Really kind of taking care of your power consumption in a very, very dynamic and a real-time manner. Really giving you that flexibility again based on our unique innovation of ENP at Huawei. Moving on the next slide here. I'm sure you kind of, when you look at the campus switches, you're going to say, you know what, a port is a port is a port. Switches are becoming commodities, but I'm going to counter that point because some of the things that we have done in our campus switches are extremely and very uniquely innovative. For example, again, I'm talking from a global perspective here. We have come out with our LAN campus switches, which actually are the first industry series of switches with internal batteries. They can ensure uninterrupted supplies in an environment with frequent power failures. Where you may not care in the US about some of those power failures, but globally there are enough countries where power failure is a problem. What Huawei has actually done is actually taken some of these campus switches and have got the batteries internally within that switch. Now, using that internal battery, it's really kind of helps you occupy less space, can really take care of those frequent power supply, and it can all be managed in a very efficient manner using a centralized web control. The internal batteries can also provide you your multiple alarms and all the other kind of surge protection as you need it. Another switch that I'm going to really point out to some of our green emphasis on our campus switches as we completely comply with the standards like .3AZ, etc., etc. But as I was pointing earlier, the switches based on ENP as well as some of our campus switches, we can actually reduce power consumption by adjusting some of this power, bringing down the links, taking care of some of those optical modules, shutting down on some of the ports. The bottom line here is there is a real-time adjustment done in these switches, whether you talk of power, whether you talk of internal batteries. There are switches where we have put the power panel on the front of the switch. That means that particular switch can be installed in a space of 300 millimeter. Imagine the data centers. Imagine the distribution or core network where space is a problem and you don't want the cables to come from the back. Some of these campus switches support this front panel that really helps cater to some of those situations. Let's talk about the next series of switches, our unique data center core switches based on 12,800. Speeds and feeds are great. I mean, they provide the versatility and the resilient performance that's really needed for some of these multimedia applications. In addition to speeds and feeds, the one thing I'm going to point out here is, for example, the trill, the number of interconnection. Huawei using the trill protocol can support more than 512 nodes, giving you that flat layer 2 network that you need from a cloud fabric. As Tom was pointing earlier, we lead. In fact, we were the chairperson of the trill protocol in the IETF. Not just for the trill itself, Huawei also leads the wireless protocols. .11ac is actually headed by a person who works in Huawei Canada. So the point I'm trying to point here is Huawei has been leading some of these innovations in the campus and the data center switches and bringing those enhancements into the network and the solution. The CE12800 along with that CE8600 top of the rack switches actually can implement the largest non-blocking architecture in the industry. It can provide access, for example, up to tens of thousands of 25 gig or 10 gig network. Our CE12800 actually uses a patented front to back airflow design that isolates the cold air channel from the hot air channel. So if you look at some of the fan trays within the 12800, again, there's a very unique design here. We have two counter-rotating fans, again ensuring a very efficient heat dissipation. The fan speed can be dynamically adjusted actually, again, based on the workload, emphasizing the green nature that was there in our campus switches to our data center switches as well. Next, I'm going to show you one of the unique conceptual approach here. Again, this is going to be sort of, we launched this thing at the Huawei Congress HNC in May this year, and you're going to see that as in a production in the third quarter of this year. What we have done, we have formed what we call a Cloud Clean Alliance actually to provide a real-time cleaning and scrubbing services for denial of service attacks actually. Today what happens is if there is a DDoS attack, the traffic needs to be sent to the scrubbing center. That scrubbing center may be located far away, and then it might increase the latency and the attacks can go much deeper before they are stopped actually. What Huawei has done is they actually partnered with some of the top telecom providers in China and worldwide, and also partnered with some of the technology companies, including the names in San Francisco Bay Area, to really establish this alliance. So when the attack happens, the scrubbing Huawei Security Operations Center is going to send that traffic to the nearest scrubbing center to clean that traffic, reducing the latency, and really taking care and catering to the worldwide operations as opposed to be limited to one particular place or location. So again, Huawei is one of the first ones to bring that approach to the DDoS attacks. As you know, DDoS attacks are on the rise in the last 2 years. We have seen attacks more than 400 gigabytes or even up to a terabyte. And Huawei is actually kind of going ahead of that problem and establishing some of these approaches to handle and help our customers. So with that, actually, I think, Nick, it's time for the polling question number 3. I'm going to hand it over to you.
AJ, you are right. It is time for the final polling question. And what we want to know now is when you're making technology purchases, how important is it that the vendor you're selecting is an innovation leader? So is that a very important consideration? Is it somewhat important or not important? So go ahead and make a selection there, and we'll give you a few minutes to vote, or a few seconds, I should say, and then we're going to go ahead and go through the home stretch here with Thomas taking back over. Please do submit your questions via the chat panel. I know there's a number of you that have done that. Thank you. And if there's others that have questions, there's a lot of good information you're learning about here, folks, so don't be bashful. Please submit your questions. So you can see, Thomas, that the overwhelming majority of people feel like it's very important for them to be purchasing products and technologies from companies that have significant investment in innovation and are considered innovation leaders. So I think that's got to be good news for this panel of speakers. And with that, Thomas, I'm going to transfer it back over to you.
Sounds great, Nick. Thanks. And yeah, that absolutely concurs with what we found over time is that our customers definitely want us out at the front edge of innovation and bringing that innovation to their networks to give them competitive advantage. Let me close on the product side and the solution side with a couple areas, and I mentioned these before in context. The first is the many zettabytes of information that will be produced every year by the time 2025 rolls around. And so if you're faced with that kind of onslaught, I think you want to partner with a company that has, let's face it, a great storage solution. I'm here to tell you and to confirm that Huawei has just that. We do provide a storage solution that provides maximum performance and capacity across a wide range of needs. So whether you're entry level, mid-range, or high-end enterprise applications, you've got big data sets that you need to process, vertical industry of some type, CRM, ERP, whatever have you, and cloud storage applications. We have a solution for you, whether that's SAN-based, NAS-based, iSCSI. We have, in essence, we have all your protocols and all your scenarios covered. We also have, where the industry going right now is largely solid state. That really is showing the largest piece of the growth across the industry for storage. The other solutions are somewhat flattish. Solid state storage is definitely taking off, and we've got a great solution there. And I'll actually talk about that in one of my customer reference points, which is the CSS Insurance of Switzerland. Last product slide here, solution slide, is we do have a full gamut of video conferencing and telepresence solutions. Let me just highlight just one, and that's the TE series of high-definition video conferencing. This TE series is breakthrough in more than one way. It shows major improvements in usability and user experience. Number one, installation and deployment can be wrapped up within 5 minutes, and that's with a non-IT user, which is huge for the small office set. Or if you have a few dispersed offices, that's a huge benefit to not have that IT person have to go to 3 or 4 different remote offices. A short wait for smooth 1080p HD conferencing, and also we support, uniquely and first in the industry, we have support for voice dialing, and that's a further testament to Huawei's, the TE series ease of use and quick interoperability with most current networks. So if you're looking for a solution of that type, we do have an entire telepresence from room size all the way down to desk size solution. I would advocate you take us up on that and look in our product catalog for our TE series video conferencing solutions. All right, last piece of the webinar today. I'll talk about a few of our customer references worldwide and then give you a little partner information at the end of the solution. So if you are a partner, you're a reseller, you're looking to partner with a new and different vendor, I'd like to give you some information to help make that happen. As I mentioned before on my storage side, my first customer references is CSS Insurance. They're an insurance company, a very long-standing one that's headquartered in Lucerne, Switzerland. They were established in 1899. That gives you an idea of how long they've been around. They're the second largest medical insurance company in Switzerland, and they have 150 agencies throughout the country and really processing a huge, obviously, amount of data from an insurance perspective. If you know anything about the insurance industry, there's a lot of data centralization going on where they're actually centralizing a lot of assets and having to keep it secure. And that poses a couple of challenges from a disaster recovery, information security, and response perspective. And so what Lucerne was looking to do was to expand the storage capability, but without having to buy an entire new storage system, but to expand an enclosure at a time. And that's exactly what Huawei was able to do for them in their system expansion. We were able to expand their network via a series of new enclosures rather than hard disk systems, which saved them a whole bunch off the top from a TCO perspective. And we've scaled it up to 10 terabytes very efficiently, and the complex processing and the system efficiency that we provided really was knocked it out of the ballpark for them. So there's a very happy customer from a financial vertical side. Kind of on a totally different take, the city of Nanjing in China is becoming, like many other cities worldwide, a city that aspires to be a smart city, if you would, where they take information infrastructure and apply it to optimize city management of services, improve the citizens' quality of life, and create a favorable environment for smart industries and high-end talents to migrate to. There are estimated to be over 200 super cities or cities over 20 million people worldwide. By 2025, that number is roughly going to double. So obviously this whole concept of the smart city is one that's going nowhere but north. And so Nanjing found the Huawei ELTE solution, or Enterprise Long-Term Wireless Evolution, to be exactly what they needed. It allowed them to do a couple of things. Number one, to unite disparate fire, police, citizens band, and other types of information systems across one infrastructure, and also allow them to expand communications past the service provider DMARC into territories not previously very well serviced by communications. And they also, in a record amount of time, allowed them to also host the 14th Asian Youth Games by that gentleman, Li Nan, who actually headed the infrastructure deployment. So again, if you're interested in a wireless solution that goes beyond the traditional DMARC, ELTE from Huawei is definitely something you want to look into. We are the #1 vendor of ELTE in the world, as a matter of fact. Okay, from smart cities to smart soccer, what I'm showing here is a Dortmund stadium in Germany. And soccer and sports arenas in general provide several interesting challenges if you think about it. So probably nowhere else do that many people come together for a short period of time and demand the kind of user experience that these types of fans do. Dortmund itself is about 80,000 persons, and when you have a game there, you have a couple of dynamics going on. Number one, you need to be able to provide 100% Wi-Fi coverage for all of those fans if they choose to use it. And as a matter of fact, that is a huge differentiator for most competitive teams now, so you'd better be providing that in the stadium. And number two, they also have both voice and video access they need. And finally, they need concurrent users, 24,000, for example, users concurrently hammering on the network, capturing photos, sharing them across the net. And the network needs to be able to take that node for 2, 3, 4 hours span. And so Huawei was successfully able to partner with Dortmund to provide exactly that kind of a user experience. And we're also expanding into a series of other sports arenas worldwide. Dortmund is simply one example. Okay, so smart football to smart physics and beyond. I'm showing here CERN, which is a European organization for nuclear research. It's the largest nuclear research center in the world. It has several daughter and partner universities in the United States and worldwide. And their particular area of emphasis is high-energy particle physics and exploring the next quark, the next neutrino, the next gluon. What's that next particle we can chase? And as you can imagine, this produces an enormous amount of storage needs over time. And so on this slide, I'm showing exactly the kind of needs these folks have and what we're able to scale up to, again, one enclosure at a time. They actually add more than 20 petabytes of data research each year. We provided that excellent architecture they needed to firm the results. And we also, at the same time, because we were able to reduce the OpEx of the entire network, reduce our OpEx in a couple-year period by over 45%. So again, a great case study, one that we've got written up. And also, if you Google it, it's actually, we have had a press release and a co-seminar with CERN, so certainly something to look up in your time if that's an area of interest to you. Last couple of slides here. No discussion regarding a company like ourselves can be complete without an ecosystem slide, and certainly we have one that will rival anyone else you'll probably run into in the industry. There's 3 important pieces to it. A sales and service arm, where we have various levels of gold, authorized, and also silver partners. And again, if you'd like to go ahead and if you are a reseller and you'd like to get more interest, please consult our sales team here. I'd be glad to give you some information at the end of the webinar or to send it out afterwards. We also have a series of vendors they're best-in-kind vendors in their space for various types of solutions and applications. And those are listed across the bottom. Folks like Oracle, obviously, from a database and a software perspective, Schneider Electric for our data center practice, and Telefonica as a provider, and many, many other names. And these are all, obviously, again, worldwide names and folks that we continue to work with in the U.S. as well. All right, again, last but not least, certainly our Alliance and Partner Development Program. Our biz dev team is extremely hard at work, providing things like co-development and joint innovation centers for new and existing partners, ISV or independent software certification for any of you folks who want to write to our APIs. We have over 200 certified ISVs and thousands, literally, of technically trained engineers that we've helped pass through Huawei's certification process over time. Open labs are available to our partners and to our resellers, and inquire within for details. And then finally, we have an entire software development kit to help you along the way. So we're at time for a few questions here. Let me turn the mic back over to Nick. And Nick, what do we have brewing there?
We did get a number of questions, and I just want to thank you guys again. I mean, Bo, what a great overview of the MirrorSys project and how incredible that sounds. And AJ, I know you did kind of a whirlwind through a lot of the different networking innovations, which was fantastic. And Thomas, we really appreciate you kind of bringing it home, showing how different customers are deploying a lot of this innovation. So fantastic. Let's get it started with, there's been a couple different questions on the topic of wireless, and I'll kind of distill it down to what's going on with Huawei in the 802.11ax space. Can you talk a little bit about some of the innovation that's happening on that new area of wireless?
Okay, so Nick, let's first define what 802.11ax is. That is the next standard that we expect from a Huawei perspective to be active right around the 2017-18 era. Right now we're looking at 802.11ac, which probably a lot of my customers on the call have deployed. But what that is, 802.11ax is the next standard that we expect for wireless communications. And it stands for, in essence, it's the HEW standard, High Efficiency WLAN. And to net it out, what it does, it quadruples the aggregate throughput of 802.11ac. So for those growing groups of folks that you see using wireless in applications like stadiums, in large venues, even in large enterprises, this is very much of interest. At the end of the day, what it delivers is the speed of a traditional desktop Ethernet connection to a mobile user, if you can imagine such a thing. And Huawei is very much at the forefront of this, and we're actually taking the lead in developing the standard. We are actually chairing the IEEE committee for 802.11ax. So that kind of in a nutshell is the summary of what's going on next for wireless, and AJ's got something to add too.
Sure. Let me just add one thing here. So .11ax actually brings 10 gigabits actually, and Huawei has a working prototype today in our lab. So if anybody is interested in looking at that standard and how we bring the 10 gigabits wirelessly, is more than welcome to contact us, and we'll be happy to show that. Okay. Thanks.
Excellent. Excellent. We have a couple customers who I think are existing networking customers, and they just wanted to know if you could elaborate a little bit more. Seems like some of these guys are using the current Cloud Engine 6850 products, and they want to know if you can talk just a little bit more about the CE 8800 and just kind of quickly compare what some of the improvements and advantages of the 8800 model is going to be over the 6850.
So some of those updates, Nick, I couldn't show in the slide actually. We bring the 25 gigabit to the network. As I was saying, if you couple the 12800 with the 8800 and 6800, we can really create the industry's largest non-blocking architecture. We have two ports, I think two ports of 100 gig on the boxes. There is a multitude of 40 gig as well. I don't remember the number right now, but we'll be happy to send that information on the 8868 and 12,800 to the people who are interested in.
And that's very important. This is Tom kicking here, Nick. That's very important because at the end of the day, a lot of customers have come to us and said, you know what, I'm not necessarily making that huge jump right now directly to 100. I need something in the meantime. And so this is very much a mix and match, if you would. So if you're at your 25, you're at 40, you're at 100 with that server adapter, we've got a solution that fits your need. We're not going to force you into a change you don't want to make, as well as keeping your current cabling to support the solution. So very stair-step migration through server access out to top of rack.
Excellent. This one's probably for Bo because it's about the MirrorSys project, and the question is, can you talk a little bit about the bandwidth requirements to be able to implement something like MirrorSys between two locations?
Sure. So the current prototype is capturing at 32 megapixels, 60 frames per second, and that's roughly equivalent to 8K, a little bit higher. And then the version 2 prototype is twice that, so it's 64 megapixels, 60 frames per second, using an array of 6 4K cameras. So compressing that generates at the raw level on the order of 300 gigabits per second. But we compress that down to something like, for a relatively calm scene, we can compress it down to about 100 megabits per second. For something like sports, where you have a lot of movement and action, the compression ratio is not as great, and that's going to be 200 to 300 megabits per second. And we're trying to get it even smaller than that, but our main focus is on real time, because the challenge for compression is actually not so much the compression ratio, but in doing it in real time, that's more challenging because it takes a lot of computation to get it down small.
Wow, excellent, great answer. And another question here is, what should we be doing to prepare our network for the latest wireless technologies you guys have been talking about?
Sure. Let me start with, and actually, Tom, feel free to add in there. So what we are hearing from our customers, they are in the process of kind of moving to .11ac. given the speeds and the flexibility, some of the smart antenna beamforming technologies that .11ac brings to the table. A lot of people have been waiting for Wave 2. Wave 2 products are arriving. Huawei is going to release the Wave 2 products pretty soon. What I would suggest to the customers, look at your network, look what's happening with the speeds actually. If you are in the process of migrating, now is a good time. Wave 2 products are going to hit it. You can actually kick the tires in the lab if you want it. It's going to take you into the range of 2 to 3 gig. We have tested more than 1 gig of performance in the .11ac Wave 1 products. We will soon be releasing the numbers with the third party on the Wave 2 numbers as well. So here is, go ahead and use some of the configuration tools that Huawei provides as part of the network management. Get those heat maps taken care of and see whether you need that increased and enhanced performance.
Yeah, to AJ's point, absolutely. Take advantage of our WLAN inventory tools, our management tools, and understand your current network patterns and your traffic patterns, and also where do you expect the growth to come from? Will many more R&D labs be part of one of your buildings? Are you moving to a new site? So understand all of that, and then to AJ's point, take a test project and go ahead and apply 11AC to it and see what your results are. So again, the planning now will definitely set the stage for a successful implementation further down the road, and we have the WLAN tools to help you do just that.
Outstanding. Well, guys, unfortunately, we're about out of time. There were a number of other questions about how do I become a partner, how do I get more information, how do I find out about certification courses. We have some contact information here up on this slide, so you can go to the Huawei Enterprise USA website. You can send an email to huaweiinfo@huawei.com or call the 855-GO-HUAWEI number, and you'll be able to speak to a representative that will help direct you to the right place and get you to the website and get you signed up as a partner if you want to do that. Huge thank you to our three speakers, Thomas, AJ, Bo. Incredible job. I know it was a ton of information that you guys went through, so thank you for that great work. And for anybody who didn't get their question answered, apologies that we ran out of time. We'll follow up with you directly after the webinar. Remember, this will be available on the Huawei Enterprise USA website, so if you want to share this recording with any other partners or prospects or customers, please feel free to do so. And with that, gentlemen, thanks again, and we will see you very soon on another Huawei webinar.